We are here to have a conversation about the future of food involving Upcycled. And I've got three expert panelists here today. We're going to have more of a discussion, a conversation. If you have questions, we welcome you to get those ready. We're going to be looking for those. My name's Karen Butler. I'm one of the editors on the Supply Side Network. I work on Food and Beverage Insider and Natural Products Insider, and of course here on our event. How about, would you guys mind introducing yourselves today and give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. My name is Lara Ramdin. I'm the Chief Innovation and Science Officer of Upcycled Foods, Inc., formerly known as Regrained. We're the prince of the upcycled movement. We like to change our name. If you were here expecting Angie, unfortunately she couldn't make it. She's the CEO of the Upcycled Food Association. So I'm here as her sub, as her stand-in. I'm also here representing the association because I'm a board member. So I have been in this role for 6 months, and prior to this one, I was the Chief Innovation Officer of Dole Packaged Foods and introduced our upcycling agenda and set up Dole Specialty Ingredients, which is our upcycled ingredients arm as well.
Awesome. Jason?
Hi, my name is Jason Liebert. I'm Chief Growth Officer at MSP Starch Products, Inc. We make Solnol, product, prebiotic fiber. And excited to share more about upcycling.
And hi, I'm Andrew Richard. I'm Comet's founder and Chief Technology Officer. We're a technology-enabled ingredient company, make a prebiotic also. Canadian company. My background is in sustainable and upcycled materials dating back pretty far, unfortunately, 25 or 30 years. And happy to be on the panel and have the discussion.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Ramdin, let's start with you. You are our innovation ninja. Can you tell us what upcycling is for those who are new to it?
I'm going to put that in my LinkedIn profile. I don't have that yet, but I think I'm a Science Barbie Innovation Ninja. So upcycled food, the official definition is diverting food from landfill and elevating food to its highest and best use. And I think that's really critical because the word upcycling is becoming very buzzy and increasing in people's vernacular and in their awareness. And I think it's important that we come back to the sort of standard definition of upcycled, and also linked to that, of course, is the certification. And a part of the certification, and I'm here to make sure that everybody understands how important the certification is as well, is really the only way to guarantee your authenticity and transparency of that supply chain. So it's really the only way for you to know that when you're buying an ingredient and or product that says it's upcycled and it has the upcycled logo on, then the supply chain has been audited and it's been proven that that would have been a food ingredient and or product that would otherwise have gone to waste. And obviously the certification and the logo is only a few years old, so it's still a fledgling movement. And we want to do everything that we possibly can to become as big as the organic certification, even. So elevating food to its highest and best use is essentially what upcycled means.
Great. So I would say many creative families have been upcycling in many cultures for a lot of years, right? When did it start gaining traction in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on who you talk to, people go, yeah, but I've been upcycling for years because, like, I'm at home, we use all our leftovers. We don't have any leftovers. I think upcycling really came into consciousness probably. The Upcycled Food Association is celebrating its 4-year anniversary right now, actually. So 2019. The company I work for, the CEO is one of the founding members of the Upcycled Food Association, together with Turner Wyatt and also Caroline Coto. And they came together because, like Caitlin here, who's sitting here, she's the founder of Pulp Chips. They basically, in their own worlds, said, there's just too much food waste. We need to do something about this. I can do something with this. I can create something with this. And were galvanized, essentially, by wanting to do the right thing. And then subsequent to that, of course, then we have Refed and other things who are generating data and insights, like, for example, that the US wastes the equivalent of 144 billion meals worth of food every year, for example, or that is equal to a cost of $444 billion. and a third of food waste comes from us at home. And when you see figures like that, then more and more people join the movement, and they kind of go, yeah, okay, well, of course we're going to do something about it because it's a no-brainer. So really the word upcycled, what it means today has only really come into consciousness since 2019, since these guys who wanted to start their own businesses became interested in it, saw it as an opportunity, not just to create a business, but also to do something better for the planet and for people too. And yeah, so we're 4 years old right now.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Birthday, anniversary?
I'm looking really good for my age, aren't I?
So, as with anything, strength in numbers, that makes sense. What types of companies or people or organizations are members of Upcycled Food Association, or UFA, you may hear us refer to it as?
So we have 2 members here, represented with Solnol and Comet Bio, and Caitlin also represents Pulp Chip. She always represents another business. There are 263 members, and I would say that of the 263, probably about 258 are startups, small to medium enterprises. So people who have been working in sustainability and seen an issue and wanted to tackle it, people who have seen food waste. Caitlin tells a story about being at college and looking around all her friends and seeing how they waste food all the time and thinking, gosh, we should do something about that. You know, people who just wanted to do the right thing, but most of them are small to medium enterprises. And there are obviously things that we need to consider associated with that, which is that if we want the upcycle movement to gain traction and also certification to gain traction, then all of these businesses need different types of relationships, partnerships, and funding. There are a few big companies that are part of the association. Dole was one, obviously, but because I advocated for it. Del Monte is another, Kerry's another, IFF is another, but we need more bigger companies to join forces with the smaller companies to really create the revolution and sort of create momentum around the disruption that we need, basically.
Yeah, I'm actually super surprised. I thought I knew a lot about this topic, but to hear that it's more startups than large companies is surprising to me. So you have ingredient suppliers who are members, you have CPG companies who are members, you have researchers, scientists, students.
Yeah, so we all represent ingredient companies, actually. I don't know whether that was by default, but we are all operating in the upcycled ingredient industry so B2B. But there are also a lot of CPG brands. Caitlin here, sorry, I keep referring to Caitlin because she's the person that I know, but she represents the CPG brand. She can tell you all about Pulp Chips. Later I can hand the mic to her. But we have a lot of CPG. We have snacks and we have beverages. There are, many beverages made from upcycled whey, for example. We have an alcoholic spirit made from upcycled whey with spirit, for example. So we have I would say we span the full food system, actually.
Awesome. Well, let's turn our attention to some ingredient suppliers here. I'd love to hear a little bit about just the basics of what your upcycled ingredient is and the derivation. If you could give us an overview of that.
Sure, absolutely. So we make a prebiotic fiber-resistant starch. We work with the potato processing industry to reclaim the co-product, upcycled product, and then bring it back to our facility. I think, like Lara was saying, the upcycled definition is using it at its highest purpose, and our whole vision was to use resistant starch to understand how it feeds the gut microbiome. And I don't know what we're learning how important gut health is to overall health. I don't know what fits that definition better than fueling our microbes for host health benefits. And so we're a Canadian company located in Carberry, Manitoba, 1,800 people last I checked. Our founders, and I think it was the vision, they were the largest potato farmers in Manitoba, and kind of that stream of farmers or people that are, they don't let anything go to waste. they see value add.
That's actually how we became friends, actually, because
it's true.
He is in potatoes and I was in bananas, and they're both sources of resistant starch. And he works with potato farmers, and I worked with a big plantation in the Philippines whose biggest waste problem was waste bananas. And so we came together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Around a conversation on resistant starch, because there's resistant starch in green bananas and resistant starch in potatoes. And we came together on the basis that we both felt that we were sitting on nutritional gold, essentially, in terms of supporting people's health, like basically creating better health and wellness from food waste, essentially.
So our vision was to unlock through science, research, clinical trials, to really unlock what we know about resistant starch, if some of you have heard of it already, but to show through the research of really how important that nutrient is to our overall health, using it from an upcycled source material. So we bring that back to our facility, put it through our proprietary process, and then sell it to partners around the world. We're 3 years old. We were a pandemic. I was at Expo West in March 2020. I was already there at Disneyland, and then it got canceled, as some of you may recall. So we're getting more and more products into the market.
Excellent. That's awesome. So our product is an arabinoxylan that we produce from crop leftovers. Arabinoxylan is a soluble prebiotic fiber. If you look at whole grains, which humans have been eating for millions of years, thousands of years, something like 70% of the soluble fiber in whole grains is arabinoxylan. And so what we've done is extracted the material in a way that makes it useful for food, and it's very versatile in what it provides. And it is a good dietary fiber. We produce from crop leftovers, specifically wheat straw. Our process is fairly simple. We use steam and water to extract arabinoxylan. We use filtration to purify. It's a somewhat benign process. We just opened a commercial facility earlier this year in Denmark. Some of our manufacturing partners are here with us for the show. And we're very excited about this platform and this technology. We've looked at a wide range of materials, including save grains, hulls. We are clearly big believers in upcycled ingredients, and we're big believers in arabinoxylan, and it is in many, many different plant sources. Each one is somewhat different. Each one can provide different benefits. And this is our first launch, and we look forward to more. So we are also a Canadian company. We have our offices also here in the States, and then our manufacturing facilities in Denmark with partners.
Andrew, you touched on it, the technology or the innovation. Did you have to invest a lot or invent that, come up with that? And in terms of like nutritional value of, I would think of maybe like, you're throwing away the banana peel. Is the nutritional value just inherently in there and it just needs to be moved to the next step?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And so in our particular instance, we were interested in focusing on upcycled materials and creating value. Arabinoxylan was not our first product, and it wasn't our first thought. But as we were developing the technology and being drawn into food ingredients, we realized that we had an arabinoxylan product, and then we started to develop it from there. We were very market focused and looking at applications, looking at clinicals and running our own clinical trials on tolerance and the like. And we've tried to produce it in a way that it is very benign in foods and versatile in foods. And the whole technology is homegrown. It is simple in one sense, but it's also difficult in another, and it requires a pretty significant investment in equipment. As we launched the product, we worked a lot with co-mans until we had what we believed was enough of an ingredient to be able to then think about how we commercialize. It's hard, I think, not to maybe skip too far ahead to the challenges of upcycling, but it's hard to get to manufacturing scale, whether you're looking at farmers in Manitoba or you're looking at crop leftovers somewhere else. And we found partners who are very invested with us in this business, and it's very, very important, I think, to be able to partner to do that. And so a combination of how we process the material, looking at the end markets, looking at the product characteristics was how we got to where we are.
I just wanted to add something about process technology. I mean, the short answer is yes, it requires investment. and it requires some money. And I think the important conversation around that is it's necessary processing, because much of the waste material that we're handling has to be minimally transformed in a way that it can be safe and be of the right quality and the right taste and the right texture to go back into human food systems, whether that be, in our case, a bread, a cake, pasta, cookies, snacks. So our core ingredient, we have a patented technology, and our core ingredient is an upcycled grain, and we are in bread and cakes and snacks in the marketplace, and it does require investment in order to achieve that. I think it's also important, the conversation that we also need to have is, when is processing a good thing? Because we're all in the food industry, and there's a lot of narrative around processed and ultra-processed foods, and I think to blanket use the word process and assume that's bad is not a good thing, by the way. And so I want to make the point that this is necessary processing, and this is necessary processing and necessary investment in order to create value-added ingredients that can then be upcycled and go back into the food system.
Let's talk about supply chain. I mean, that's one of the biggest factors here. How are we building an upcycled ingredient supply chain? What are some of the challenges? What's working?
Yeah, I think it's a really key, as you're scaling and as you're building, the spec sheet, consistency, quality. We work very closely with our partners on collecting, and we plug into a big system, so it's not a regional, right? We plug into work with the potato processing industry to reclaim what they're not making product, right? And then take that away. So it is a really key area to hone in. And I think, food, we plug into a food grade food industry. So there's lots of opportunity to, like others are from the ketchup industry, upcycling tomato seeds and that. So there's lots of opportunity, but you have to have quality, you have to have consistency and be able to scale that up to the quantities that your partners will want.
I think so. Where Upcycled Foods Inc. operates is working with manufacturers, bigger manufacturers, who have a waste problem and or issue that they don't know how to deal with. So when I think about supply chains, I think about working with partners and collaborating with partners who want to make their supply chains more valuable. And when I say more valuable, it could be revenue, but by more valuable, I mean in terms of doing positive things for the planet and creating good nutrition for people. In our food system here, especially in the US, most big food companies make their food in a very linear way. And so there isn't an ability, it's not so easy to reroute your systems to then include how to manage waste. And that's where I can come in and say, okay, well, let's figure out how we're going to do this. What is it that we're going to create together? How can we upcycle this and create something value added? And I think actually upcycling, right now I've been having lots of conversations about upcycling being part of the future of decarbonizing supply chains. Most people think about decarbonizing supply chains in terms of reducing water usage, reducing energy usage, using waste to create energy, and actually upcycling and creating other food products from it or other food ingredients from it is another enabler to decarbonizing supply chains.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of using these types of ingredients is they tend to be inconsistent, particularly in things like crop leftovers, which is what we're using. They're only harvested a few weeks of the year. They're by definition a product that farmers don't care as much about. It's not that they don't care about them, but they don't care as much about them in terms of their consistency. And it is very critical to have those owners of that material fully engaged in the process. And we say a lot that this process doesn't start when that material hits our manufacturing facility. It starts in the field during harvest and sometimes even before harvest. Our partners in Denmark do a great job working with a group of farmers there, but we're talking about dozens, if not hundreds of them. I've sat at a lot of farmer kitchen tables talking to them about what's important for this process and why it's good and why they should maybe tweak things a little differently, which they don't necessarily want to do, in order to get materials off the field in a way that makes sense. Ultimately, we're making relatively high value products. They need to be consistent for customers, as Jason said, and to do that, if you don't have good partners along the value chain, and the same would be true if you're taking a food side stream from a food processor, you will have more challenges than you need to have. It's critically important, and they are amongst our very, very most important partners. Farmers and that agricultural community, again, whether they're in Manitoba or Denmark, they are very, very innovative. They want to add value to their acres and to their fields. They absolutely do. And it takes a village to work through those challenges. There's no question.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a repeated theme of education basically within industry. How about consumer awareness and education? Where are we at with that piece?
I think consumer awareness, I mean, in my board role on the Upcycled Food Association, consumer awareness is one of our biggest challenges. And I think when you're an ingredient supplier, we're all ingredient suppliers, and we are talking B2B. We're talking to people who get it, right? We're talking to people who are already bought in, who already understand that diverting food from landfill reduces greenhouse gas emissions. We're creating nutrient-dense ingredients that are good for people, and added fiber and protein and all these things. So from a B2B perspective, I think the awareness is there. I think the problem is the challenge, and I see this in my role as Chief Innovation Officer when I'm talking to bigger food companies. They're going, yeah, emotionally and logically, I get this, and I really like the idea, and I really like the concept, but how am I going to sell this to my marketing team who make product X, which could be, like I said, any one of the things that we've launched, bread, pasta, snacks. The idea that nutrition and or food comes from waste is not palatable, right? It's not sexy. And, you know, our job collectively is to make food waste sexy. And I think we're at the very beginning of that, and the word upcycled is being used more. And I think for me, certainly the narrative changes when you move away from waste and you start talking about rescued nutrition, and you start talking about you know, nutritional treasure. I always use the phrase nutritional treasure whenever I'm talking to my partners and the people that I'm developing products for. And what's really important, I think, in terms of consumer awareness is also not necessarily trying to create novel foods that cost a lot of money, because another challenge from a consumer perspective is accessibility and price point. And so I think it's really important that we're working hard to make sure that we're meeting consumers where we're at. Which is one of the reasons why I joined this company, is because we are creating normal foods that people buy, like bread and pasta and so on. And I think that's really important. We have a long way to go when it comes to consumer awareness, but that's why we need all the collaboration and partnership, because we need to do it together. If you're a startup, you can't do it on your own. You have to do it with the right people.
So say that I'm a brand and upcycling is new to me, and I'm like, yes, resonates with who I am as a company. Do you guys have tips or advice for how they can get started? Like they don't even know where to look?
Well, come to one of us, right?
No, I think you know, you can listen to our story, and yes, there's education, a lot of these new emerging categories, but I'm a big, what do the consumers want? What are they opening their wallets? And I think I'd say the UFA, we're all part of associations and groups and pros and cons with all of them. The UFA, the data that they're generating with partners at like Spins and what's happening at the consumer level, consumers are willing to pay more for an upcycled product. And I don't have the exact numbers. I don't know if you, Larry, you have it, but those are mind-blowing. It's one of the fastest growing. When the last data I saw from Spins at retail level, one of the fastest certifications out there, and I think it just speaks to the environmental. When we talk to our customers, B2B, upcycling is in our deck. It's lower down. We've spent a lot of resources in science and clinical studies, and they want to hear what claims can I make on package and all that. But then when we get to the clinical or the upcycled data, UFA's provided, they're like, okay, wow, I get it. Our marketing team would love to hear this or share that. So
I think with the spins data is helpful to show you that directionally the consumer is more open, both A, to sustainable products, and B, to upcycled products. But for any of us who've worked in CPG, you know as well as I do that what people agree to on a piece of paper at their kitchen table doesn't necessarily reflect what they're doing when they're in the shop. Because frankly, when you're in the shop, what's guiding you is price and also your expectations of taste, right? But what we do know is from the spins data is that there is an openness, an increasing openness. I think 70% of consumers say they're open to they want to buy sustainably sourced products or sustainable products. And the upcycled logo, the certification, around 54% people said that they would buy a product that's upcycled certified. So considering we're a pretty fledgling movement, I would say it's directionally it's going in the right direction, but there's way more work to do.
Yeah, when we're obviously staunch supporters, we try and derive down to tangible things that either CPGs or consumers will see and will resonate with. In our particular instance, we're using a material that has a very low carbon footprint. In our opinion, life cycle analysis is very important. These are ingredients that will tend to have a lower carbon footprint. There's an awful lot of work around, good work around reducing the carbon footprint of products. It tends to focus on things like sustainable packaging more than sustainable ingredients, but it's much easier to reformulate an ingredient and lower the carbon footprint of that entire formulation than it is to put it in a new plastic that needs all the work that it needs in the supply chain that goes around that. So that type of language resonates. Clearly using food that would otherwise go to waste. No additional acres required to produce this food. Producing food from things that may not otherwise have been used to produce food. These are all things I think that resonate, but ultimately I think in our view, we have to make great ingredients. They have to be able to provide benefits. If they also happen to be upcycled, then that's just, that's what we want to be able to, that's what all of the panelists here are focused and driven to try and do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Dr. Ramden, to get the upcycled certification, whether you're an ingredient or you're a product, there's different percentages that have to be?
Yeah, so in order for your product to be certified as upcycled, your product needs to contain a minimum of 10% upcycled ingredients. And then for your upcycled ingredient to be certified as upcycled, it needs to be over 90, I can't remember the exact, 90 something upcycled content, 95, thank you, 95% upcycled content. So, and the reason why it was set up like that is because obviously we're a fledgling movement, right? We're only 4 years old, but we want to encourage more and more people to join, right? And we didn't want to make the bar, from a product perspective, especially from a CPG perspective, we didn't want to make the bar so high that everybody couldn't join in the upcycle movement and also join in the certification process. I would say, based on my experience of multiple certifications in my life, it's pretty inexpensive, and I think it's definitely worth the ROI, honestly.
Great. Well, our time is flying. I'm going to ask each of you if you have anything that you wanted to share, because we had all kinds of things we were going to talk about today. Tips, tidbits, comments on the industry. Andrew, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to upcycle ingredients because you're dealing with developing a product that may be in a new market at the same time that you're developing a supply chain. But I think the future is bright. We have not scratched the surface on all the different materials that we can upcycle, products that we can make. We will look back on this as the golden age of reducing food system waste and upcycling. I think it's an incredibly bright future, but it's not for the faint of heart.
I know we talked a lot about food, so if you're food companies, but I'd challenge the dietary supplements. I think this is starting in food. So if you're a dietary supplement brand, I would challenge you to look at, from an ESG or sustainability standpoint, how easy upcycling with several partners, how you can fold that in, because it's going to come into the dietary supplement.
I would say what's really important now for the future is collaboration. And I don't I don't mean that. I know that it's a word that gets used a lot, but I mean real collaboration. And I think the innovation for me is in the collaboration model, because I think sometimes we treat collaboration a little transactionally. And I think if you're in a startup, whatever size your company is, I think certainly for me, I'm interested in looking at different models, because yes, of course, we need to operate businesses and pay people and make some profit, but it isn't always about the profit. It is also about the progress in the upcycled ingredients, and also the progress in getting more upcycled ingredients in more food, because ultimately it is better for people and better for the planet.
Amen. Can we give our speakers a round of applause?